What a day. What a week, ladies and gentlemen. Mortifying, isn't it? Absolutely mortifying. I don't know what to make of it, to be perfectly honest. I know there's a whole bunch of protests going on now overnight. Um yeah. How they turn out, it's going to be not interesting because I think it's going to I think what we know will get used. Hello, Sam. What we know will get used against. I think they'll try and get people to kick off. Um, Shocking, mate. And it. What do you make of it? What you're seeing? I mean, we literally have the incident that took place in Northern Ireland, and then today you get a 14-year-old attacks two kids and a teacher in Manchester. And it's probably not the only one. I'm sure we'll hear more report because it's just daily now, isn't it? It's every single day. Every single day. There doesn't seem to be any getting away from it. Hi, Mike. Yeah, all good here, mate. I hope you're well. Sam, hi, mate. It's kind of hard for someone like I say this sometimes, like in my position. I don't feel like I have a position, but I do know, and I am fully aware that obviously I've got quite a large following. I said earlier in the video, I think people listen to what me and many others say. And it does, and I've always been that person to advocate for democracy, that that we can do this the right way. That, but I think as well, I also stand by what I said earlier. I think there are a lot of people scared of speaking up, saying what they want to say in comments or just in general, because they're worried that they'll get tarnished or brandished as a fascist or whatever else. And I don't want to be the person that sits there and says, because I think I genuinely believe the country is going down one or two routes. We either, but actually three, probably four, to be perfectly honest. The first one is, yeah, it really is, Jackie. The first route is obviously no one does anything. This government just carries on doing what they're doing. The agenda just gets set. They carry on with the legislation, their narrative, their agenda. The other alternative is obviously the aggressive option, which I don't advocate for it. I don't think anybody really wants to see that. I don't think we want to see the UK descend into utter chaos. The third option is that the silent majority, that people stand up to be counted. And by that, I don't mean I'm advocating for people to suddenly start, writing ridiculous comments and posting ridiculous posts. But just imagine if a vast majority of the general public, let's say 10,000 people, let's say 10% of the people that followed me just turn around. I turn around and said, right, let's just go and post on every single Labour social media post that's created, the Mirror, what we know are the lefties, the people that protect this narrative, this agenda, and just post something like, I condemn this Labour government for what they are doing. Those words, that's it. And you post it 26,000 times on every single post they post. And you just do it relentlessly. They'll probably pull the videos. Hi, Leanne. They'll probably pull the videos. They'll probably then put something in the algorithm to stop that comment. Then we change it. I do not condone the way the Labour government is running this country. and you just do it again 26,000 times on every single post, over and over and over and over. And we do it, high matter, until they get the message. Because as much as I advocate for peaceful protest, I advocate for petitions, I advocate for voting, and I think we proved that voting works. We can win in when it comes to voting. Still, 50, 45%, 50% of people don't vote. That's a problem. It's, there are too many people sitting on their hands. Oh, there's no one that represents me. Well, there's no one that represents everybody. There's no political party that represents you 100%. It's as simple as that. None of them do. If you advocate for the Greens, there's going to be something you don't like. If you advocate for the Liberal, there's something you're not going to like with every political party. But sitting on your hands isn't working. You have to vote. I believe that fully. It's amazing what it takes to join the communities. If we don't get Starmer out, we'll be heading into a very dark future. Yeah, Alf. Yeah. Yes, Julian. Hashtag. Yeah, exactly, Ben. Yeah. But I think it's then there needs to be a post and a hashtag. So it has to be a combination. And it doesn't have to be anything violent, aggressive. It can be something very simple, but it just needs doing hundreds of thousands of times a day. Hundreds of thousands of times. Yeah, exactly, Brett. I'm the same. I condemn both of them because they're both responsible. They're both responsible for this agenda. They're both responsible for the obvious decline that we can see in the last 30 years. I'll address that in a minute, Mike. I know what you're saying. But I just think if it was something that's not going to get people in trouble, something that's just done en masse, that's what we need. Because like I was saying, I always advocate for voting, protests, and petitions. And I have to. I do think they work. I just don't think they're strong enough. I don't think enough people are doing it. I think people are scared. I'm going to go back to what you've just said, Mike. I think people are scared to stand up at protests because they're worried they're going to get arrested. They're worried they're going to get sucked into something. Think people are worried about speaking their mind. Because they're worried that their comment will get them arrested, and that's fear, that's government fear that they've instilled in people, and it doesn't have to be exactly, Ben. Words speak louder than violence. It doesn't have to be like I made this crystal clear the other day when Southampton, and I've seen the footage. I know that it was the police that went into them first. It's obvious that there's too much footage showing it it all kicked off. The police went in with the shields, and then the protesters kicked back. I would love it if they just turned tail and walked away, because they didn't need to. They didn't need to kick back at them. They could have just turned tail and walk away. You're not going to get that because you're always going to get the idiots, and leave them to it, because they will get arrested. They will get arrested for that. We've seen the people that threw big. I think it's utterly ridiculous that people are looking at 2, 3, 4, 5 years in prison for pushing a wheelie bin towards a police officer. It's a joke. It's overbearing. It's making an example of people. It's not on. I don't think the violence is condoned either. But I do think the general public have other options, and I don't think we're utilising social media enough. I don't think everybody's utilising social media enough. It's all very well for me sitting here talking and giving people information, but if they don't do anything with that information, then what I do becomes utterly pointless. And I don't expect people to act on the information, because the only way you can act on information is by voting the people out that are putting policy in, putting acts in, putting bills in, the ones that are creating it. That's where you use your vote. When we see things that they're doing that we don't like and we produce a petition, people need to sign these things and share it with 10 people. And we need to drive the narrative, and people can do that. You're not going to get sent to prison for doing that. But what I think we need, I think what was said earlier, sorry, they're moving really fast now. I think what we said earlier is we need a statement, nothing massive, nothing like too wordy, a statement and a hashtag, and it needs to be shared by people, and people need to comment it, and they need to make sure they're using that comment and that hashtag, and we just blow it across every single social media platform, on Labour's social media, on LBC, The Mirror, anything that's protecting this agenda, protecting what we see. we need to just mass send that out. Because if they're not paying attention to protest, if they're not paying attention to, because it asks nothing of people. If it's a comment that can't get you in trouble, you have no excuse to not post it. If it's a hashtag that can't get you in trouble, there's no excuse to not post it. I know and I believe with a hashtag, what social media companies will do is if the government turn around and say to them, you need to block that hashtag, what will happen is people will get videos and posts taken down and strikes on their accounts for using that hashtag. Whereas words in a comment is very hard for them to police. They can't just start blocking words because then it just proves our point. It proves our point that they're trying to silence this. So it's a win-win situation. But I think if it's a statement, if it's a comment that says something like I said, we do not condone the actions of this government, something simple, but it's mass posted on multiple social media accounts, it will people that then you get the people that aren't paying attention will start to see it. It then goes viral. And when it goes viral, it explodes. Then the news start talking about it. The people are not standing up on the street where they can condemn you for your flag or twist something around. You're not making a post that's going to get you in trouble. You're not saying anything that's going to get you landed in court. You're just saying what, and if thousands upon thousands upon thousands of people did that every single day and do it over and over and over and over and over again, surely that says us, yes, Mark, something like that. Elites out. Yeah, something like that. Hashtag elites out. Or yeah, and with a comment that says, I don't condone what this government is doing. Because I get it, and going back to what Mark said, is I fundamentally get it that people have got jobs to protect. And people have turned around and said stuff to me where they're like, oh, it's all very well for you sitting there telling people to say things, and then we want change. Yeah, exactly, Andrew. Simple 3 words. We want change, hashtag elite out. Or establishment out. Something simple that you can't get in trouble for. But it's not about what it says. It's about the masses getting behind it and relentlessly posting it. That's the thing. If you make it too simple, though, they can just like temporarily block those words, and any comment that had those combination of 3 words would get pulled. Not what I voted for. Hashtag NWIVF. Yeah. And we're good. I think, yeah, loads of great ideas here, guys. And I will do something on it, and we'll just keep pushing it. I'm going to push it. We'll come up with something and a hashtag, and I'll just try and push it. If someone else does it before me, they do it before me, I'll help with it. But I think we need something. We need a statement that people can make, like I said, that doesn't get them in trouble, that doesn't get them in trouble with the police, that doesn't get them sent to court. Something that people can post that isn't aligning them with anything, that isn't saying they're aligned. You know, if they don't want to get called fascist and racist, I don't care. I don't care. People can call me whatever they want. I don't care. And going back to what I was saying, a lot of people will say it's all very well for you sitting there telling people to do this when people have got jobs at risk. Well, I quit my job. I quit my job in education to do this. And if I hadn't quit my job, I think I would have been pushed out sooner or later. Once, especially over the last couple of years, since last July that I actually jacked my job in, I think they would have by now got me out. I'd have broken some HR rule. They'd have dragged me into the office. I know it, just simply because I was in the education, and I don't want people to lose their jobs. But unfortunately, this is the thing. 2 routes. One is the people stand up comprehensively, lawfully, and use social media to their advantage in a unified message multiple times a day, relentlessly, until they acknowledge it, and just keep doing it and keep doing it and keep doing it. Because if Labour's social media is being bombarded every post with the same thing, it becomes undeniable. They will then either have to pull their post to hide it. And like I said, I think the media would pick up on it sooner or later. And if people keep doing it, and people drove it and shared it, and more people got on board, and you turned 100,000 people into 1 million people, and 1 million people into 10 million people, imagine 10 million people all posting the same comment simultaneously with a hashtag relentlessly across media. it would only take 3 or 4 days. It would take 3 or 4 days at tops before the message got sent, and they would have to acknowledge it. Yeah, it is, James. It's far more powerful. Unified social media is so much more powerful. And you don't need to tie yourself to a political party to do it. You don't need to risk your job to do it. You don't need to put yourself out there to do it. You're not putting yourself in a situation if you're worried about what people think, because we make sure that it's a comment and a statement that doesn't get people in trouble. And I think, yeah, I think I will come up with something. I will come up with something. I'm going to write down. I'll go through the chat afterwards. I'm going to write down a load of these ideas, because I think we'll need multiples of them. Because I do think they will try and do something, change now, elites out, establishment out, things like that. And I'll jot down a whole bunch of hashtags and sayings and things that we can use. And I think then it's just got to be a rotation, 3 or 4 comments, 3 or 4 hashtags that get rotated, and people just have them saved, and that's all you post. And I don't care if it's on my channel. Like, it needs to go everywhere, everywhere. So when anyone looks at a comment section in the United Kingdom, that's what it says. Multiple thousands and thousands and thousands of times. Because the other and going back to what I was saying, people have said to me, like, it's all very well for me to sit here, but like I said, I think my job would have been at risk, and I'm at risk every single day. Hi, everybody that's joined. Sorry, I haven't said hello yet. I put myself up there every day saying things that they don't want me saying, exposing things that they're putting through, parliamentary bills that they're putting through that don't get the mainstream media coverage because they don't want people to see it, because they know that the vast majority of people in this country aren't studying the parliamentary bills webpage, and they can get away with what they want. And they hate people like me for doing that. And they've only got to flip the switch and I'm done. That's it. It's as quick as that, which is why I'm so careful about what I say and what I do. But they can shut me down any time. They can shut me down. They can shut this down right now if they wanted to. They can do whatever they want. I have no control over that. Nobody does, apart from the government and the media companies. Get the establishment out. Yeah, just things like that. Yeah. So I think we have to do, and it's got to be something that people who are worried, and I get it, because there are people that we've already seen it. There was firefighters recently that had said they were standing or aligned with Reform UK, and now they're being dragged up in front of HR and stuff, and they're being condemned for what they're doing. I don't know. So yeah, I think that, yeah. This doesn't need to be political. It doesn't need to be wholly set against a narrative. It doesn't need to be against immigration. It just needs to be unified condemnation of this government that doesn't require people to get trains and buses and travel and weekend expenses to go to protests or be out in the cold or out in the rain. You can do it from your phone, do it from your computer. It doesn't implicate you in any way, but it's just done on such a scale that they cannot ignore it. Because I get it with things like petitions. A petition gets started, someone like me shares it, other content creators share it. But even then, out of the 50,000 people that might see my video, 10% will sign it. 5%, 50% of them will confirm their email. And where you've reached 50,000 people, what you actually get is 500 or 600 who've actually done what needed to be done. And that's the way it works. And then you escalate that up. When you see one that gets 1 million, it's because that's actually hit 20 million people. And it's because of the virality of other content creators sharing it, and it just getting pushed and pushed and pushed. And we all saw it with Henry the other day. Once everybody jumped on board with it, and it was and the independent media and independent journalists were pushing that story, it took over. It absolutely took over. So yeah. Yeah, exactly, Stuart. People are people are either scared of the truth or so wrapped up trying to earn yes, I've talked about this so many times. There are so many people out there that are just trying to get on with day-to-day life that they just haven't got the time to. There's so much news, so many stories, so many things going on that people haven't got the time to keep up with it, which is why I think you need one singular thing. And then when people ask the question, what is this about? Why are all these comments being shared? What is this hashtag? you can kind of use your own narrative for it. I don't agree with immigration. Have you seen what's happened with these stabbings? I don't agree with net zero. You can align anything to it. It has to be universal. That's the thing. It has to be something that's universal that just says, we're done with this nonsense. We're done with this narrative. We're done with this agenda across the board, be it housing, immigration, industry, education, DEI, policing, you know, top down governance, free speech, restrictions, overzealous park, anything. You can attach anything to it that you've got a grievance about and have it unified in one message. That's what needs to happen. And it needs people to get behind it. I tried it once before with just people posting flags, and it kind of worked. I did see it work for a few days, but it never got the traction it needed. And because it goes back to what I've said, is there are a lot of people out there who are terrified to say something or are terrified to align themselves to something because they're worried they're going to get the sack or they're worried they're going to get dragged up in front of HR. And I get it. I fundamentally get it. I 100% get it. But yeah, it's really, I think what we've seen in the last couple of days, the Manchester stabbing this afternoon in a school, again, the thing that's happened in Northern Ireland with Henry, just the policy, they're trying to bring back PFI in for housing. They're trying to abolish the NHS, which is a bill they've got currently running. I did a video on this. No mainstream media are talking about this, not even mentioned it. I just, yeah. Why don't they do anything, Lucy, when there's over 1,000? I mean, it's not the 1,000 signature ones, it's the ones that hit 100,000. When they're hitting 100,000 and a million, they do nothing. They just debate. It just goes into a subcommittee in Parliament, and they loosely talk about it and then just fob it off. And unfortunately, it's driving people to a narrative of civil violence. And my personal belief is that, and I don't condone that because I don't think that works out well for anybody. There will be people that will thrive off something like that, a minority of people, but I don't think that does normal law-abiding families any good. I don't think it will do any of us any good in the long run in how they'll come down on us like a ton of bricks. So I think it has to be. I think it has to be. Yeah, but that's the thing, mate. Is Talk TV aren't mainstream media. Talk TV are kind of off. Mainstream media is Sky, BBC, Channel 4, ITV. Yeah, them. LBC, all the ones that are under like Ofcom regulation, and Talk TV don't come under that, so they can kind of get away with it. They just do internet stuff, so they're not a broadcaster. So it's anyone that's broadcast, like TV broadcast, they're regulated under Ofcom. So they have to comply to certain rules and regulations. They can't just blap stuff out. Talk TV can get away with it because they're internet based. And they're their own platform effectively. So they can say what they like. I mean, they can get in, like individually, people can get in crap for saying the wrong things, but yeah. Yeah, exactly, Christine. They talk, and a lot of the time, like I've said before, I think what happens is people make petitions out of anger and aren't careful about their wording because the MPs will do anything they can to get out of it, especially if it's like I always reference the digital ID one. The petition that was created around digital ID said, we oppose digital ID cards. It's the cards that screwed that instantly because they never said they were going to bring out digital ID cards. It's always been going to be via an app. It'll always be via your phone. It would always be gov.one login. So as soon as that petition said cards, that's then what politicians talk about. And I watched the debate. You had them turn around and saying, well, I don't think the government have actually got any plans for cards. So, you know, this is a little bit irrelevant. Some of them then did go on to the wider point of digital ID in the digital system. But the petition wholly just got ignored because it didn't focus on the right thing. And people make these petitions out of anger and don't think about the wording. And MPs are very good at twisting words. They're very good at twisting in. Yeah, yeah, Ben. People want to be able to have opinions without being radicalized. Yeah, exactly, Stephen. I see what you're saying. When do we say enough is enough? But what do you think is the solution? Like I've said this before, if anyone in this country was to try and storm Parliament, that'd be it. That would be it. If people think that they haven't strategized and got tactics to fight that kind of thing, it's probably one of the number one things that was written is updated yearly. What happens when the public turn on us? What do we do? What's the contingency plan? What's the strategy? They all go underground in their bunkers, let them get on with it, monitor the CCTV, and arrest everybody that was involved in it. That's all they'll do. It'll be just a mass arrests. They'll put down maximum sentences to make an example of those people. And then all you end up with is bolstered legislation, bolstered acts. You end up with a court system, and it won't be martial law because people talk about martial law. It wouldn't be that. They wouldn't need to do that because what they would do is say it's a threat to. Then they would use the terminology threat to national security. And once they use that terminology, they can then turn it back on the people. So yeah. So we're stuck between a rock and a hard place. Voting is working. It has worked recently. We saw that. We got them out in councils. That I think most of the reaction we've seen off of them over the past 2 to 3 weeks has been a result of that. I think the double down on the bills they're putting in, their agenda, their narrative, I think has been a reaction to that because people have had enough and people are now learning to use their votes to get them out. But it's too long. The time frame's too long. I don't think people can wait till 2029. The damage they can do between now and 2029 is going to be substantial. And I think people are sick of it. And people have to have patience. I think there's a lack of patience because for a lot of people, especially my age and probably 8 years younger, people over the age of 40, have lived this as adults and seen this decline for 30 years, if not longer. And now those people are at breaking point, whereas you've got a lot of younger people who are only just being introduced to the narrative. They saw maybe 2 years of the Conservatives and now 2 years of Labour. They were starting to realise they can't get on the housing ladder. They're starting to realise that free speech is being squashed. They're starting to realise that protest does nothing. And it all takes time. And the problem is the longer time it takes, the next generation comes through with a bunch of people who are not awake. And there are still people, I hate the word awake because I think people are awake to different things. Most people associate what their awake is to their immediate circumstances, be it living in poverty, be it living in a place that's been heavily overburdened with migrants, be it living in a place that suddenly your cost of living has started to become unaffordable. There are varying different levels of how people see the problems in this country, depending on where they live, what their financial situation is, how in touch with what governments are doing via policy and legislation. And then there are caveats and boxes of that. So someone's core issue might be immigration because of what they see of that, whereas another one's might be the cost of living. But what we need is what I'm talking about is what we need is something that universally unifies that together. I see it all, not all of it, but I see all the issues from farming to the WASPy women to the NHS to immigration to industry to online free speech suppression to narrative control to SDG 1 through 17, otherwise known as Agenda 2030, the World Economic Forum, top-down politics, the push down on the people, council tax rises. I see it all. Like I cover all of it. Most of you know that. But so many people only see that compartmentalized to how they are affected by it. And exactly what you just said there, Sam, that's now, I always hoped and thought that over the 4 years I've been doing this, we would now start to see kick back to it. I think we are. I think more people are getting on board with it. I think a lot of people are starting to realize that it doesn't really matter who we get in 2029 as long as we get them out and get this 100 years done. Is the next 100 years then going to be any better? I haven't got a crystal ball. I can't predict what will or will not happen. Nobody can. People can have their opinions, through whatever source of information they get, be it false or positive, depending on what your narrative is and where you see things, your positive and false will be completely different to somebody else's. I see this every day. I'm not an idiot. I see it every day. I try to not tell people who they should and shouldn't vote for. That's always been something I've done. But it's becoming more difficult to unify people because there are just more splits being created. I know what you mean, Mike. I know what you mean. Christine Fatfic, I'm trying to look at some of the comments, guys. It's hard. They are bouncing through quick. As a 24-year-old who's recently been laid off, I'm worried about the economy, opportunities, and the growing division in society. Feels like we're focused on fighting each other instead of trying to fix it. Very well said, mate. Very well said. And that just proves my point. That proves my point from Cypher. He or she is seeing this from that perspective. I see it from someone who worked in education. I see it from someone that's done this on social media, and I've spent a lot of time reading lots of different things about lots of different situations, like I said, from banks to industry to education to science to tech to AI to social media to algorithms to corporate control to lobbying to, you know, donations, funding, the World Economic Forum, EU, Agenda 2030, the plans, like we said. Yeah, Bill. Yes, Bill. A far left dystopia. Yeah. Yep. Without quite the full socialism yet, but it's coming. What's that? What did Shane say? What did Shane say? I just want to check what Shane said. I'm 58. I'm so glad I experienced England at its best. It's heartbreaking to see what the government is doing to it now. And then what was the response, Pauline? Shane, I agree. I remember the power cuts in the 70s. The electric always went off when Bless This House was on. I never thought in a million years I would look back at those times with such fondness. Says it all, doesn't it? When you've got people in their 60s and 70s who are looking back at the 70s and 80s, predominantly with the winter of discontent, which was probably one of the worst eras socially for people in the UK post World War II, and those people are saying they'd rather be back in those times than today, that's a statement in itself. That's a statement in itself. Do you believe that democracy is broken, or at least that it's a lie? If voting actually changed anything, Terry, I've said this 101 times before, and I will repeat it again. They tried to ban voting. They tried to stop the vote. If Reform UK had not threatened to take them to the High Court, none of us would have voted in those council elections. They would have postponed them. So they tried to do it. And what happened? They got booted out of seats, and they are reacting to it. Voting does work. It was proved on the 7th of May voting works when people are unified to get rid of this rot. And what we need is the other 50% that still do not partake to start getting involved. And voting isn't going to be the only solution. Getting this 2-year uniparty, 100-year rule out isn't going to be the only solution. We need a government that is going to start reversing this. And that is not, people need to wake up to the fact that no government that gets in 2029 is clicking a finger and reversing this all. It's going to take time and patience, and it's going to need the British public to bite their lips a little bit, sit on their hands a little bit. But this is the thing, is we can still have our voices heard. We can still make noise in the right way, but it ain't going to get fixed in 5 minutes flat. It's been too long in the making, far too long. And I've been trying to push this for so long. It doesn't matter whether you trust Reform or Farage or Lowe and Restore. It doesn't matter what you think is right or wrong. Both of them, I believe, are on the same side and have identical views on what needs to be done. I don't see much difference in it if you've actually studied it. People can talk about Farage till they're blue in the face about what they don't like. I could tell you exactly the same thing about Lowe. And I don't dislike the man, but there are things there that people need to be paying attention to. People sit and look at me and say he's Mr. Reform. I am not Mr. Reform. I am not aligned with a political party. I am a member and someone that admits that I vote for them. But if you think for 1 second I trust any politician, then you haven't listened to a word I've said. Because I think all of them can be got to. All of them have an agenda of some kind. I don't think any of them. I don't want to sit here and say I don't think any of them have our best interests at heart, because I think there are even people inside Labour and the Conservatives who do. And this goes back to the narrative of the general public. There are people inside the general public that are scared to say comments, scared to post things, scared to speak up because they worry for their jobs. That applies to a lot of MPs as well. They're scared to speak out. They're scared to say things because they will get brandished. They will not brandished, that's the wrong word, tarnished through circles that they might then want to, if they did come out of becoming a politician, the backbenchers, the people you don't necessarily hear, the ones that seem to back these votes or abstain, they've all got families, they've all got kids, they've all got their own things. I don't wholly blame them all. My condemnation has and always will be for the top 27 people in any government, because they're the ones who are doing it. They're the ones who are sitting there forcing these people to vote for the way they want things to go. People need to pay attention to that. And there are good people inside that building, and unfortunately there are scared people inside that building. And we don't see, and I would imagine the threat to their careers and the threat to them is far greater than any of us experience by getting an account banned because you said something, or a potential threat of going to court. And I don't think people give them enough time with that. I don't think people have enough patience to, I think everyone just wants to be like, they're all bad, they're all corrupt. And I don't think it is. I think it's the elites at the top, a select few, the ones that are really in charge, the tier threes, the higher ups, your Starmers, your Reeves, your Coopers, your Streetings, your Lammies, them, the top 27, all aligned, all on the same page. And we've seen Starmer do it. We've seen Starmer threaten them. We've seen them. Yes, MRB it is, which is why I find it quite odd that people are so condemning of Braverman and Jenrick for going to Reform when they did exactly what you just said. They were the ones that were actually standing up and saying the party's going in the wrong direction. This isn't right. I don't believe this. They defect to Reform UK, and then all we get is, oh, they're just Tory 2.0. No, they didn't believe in their party. But people can't and don't want to see it. And I get where it comes from, because a lot of people are angry. They're angry at their doorstep. They're angry at what physically and financially affects them. And they have no outlet. They have no outlet because because it's like when you turn up to vote and you see that 50% of your constituency haven't voted alongside you, you just feel like you're alone. You feel like you're shouting into the void. You go to a protest and nothing happens. There's no reaction to it. You see these crimes being committed by people and you see no condemnation of it. You see a young white man, effectively left to die by police through DEI narrative, and then people getting condemned for calling that out. And it just makes it worse and worse and worse and worse and worse for people. And then you get that rage inside you. People lash out. They say things. Then they make examples of those people by sending them to prison for the comments they make because they turned up at a protest and launched a bottle. They make examples of those people. And then it terrifies another 100 people for every one person it happens to. And it's a very good tactic by the government. They use fear, and they're good at it. They don't need to come down on us and put police on the streets and deploy the military, because they do a good enough job of it by making examples of people. Which is why I so advocate for people to just let's do something that sends a message on social media that's relentless in every comment, on every post. That every comment you think you're going to make that day, when Keir Starmer speaks, when you're going to make a comment of, will you just get out of government? It's a unified message with a hashtag that gets repeated relentlessly over and over and over and over again until it's acknowledged. And then it continues until something's done. And it might take days, it might take weeks, it might take months, but it has to be relentless. Because the other alternative, people, and going back to what I was saying earlier, there are always going to be people that when they stand up and say something, someone's going to get made an example of. Always the case. Lucy Connolly, I don't necessarily agree with what she posted, but she did take it down before anything was done, and the screenshots had already been made. So it was the screenshots they used, not the tweet that she did, because she took that back and apologized for it, but they threw her under the bus and made an example of her to terrify people. And it worked. It worked. Because as we see in the comments here, there are people now saying they're terrified to say and speak in comments and write the words down because they don't want to wind up in prison. And that's the fear people live under now. And that's been created by the government. There's no denying that. It's been created by the government. It's about time the two-party political system ended in... Yes, it is. Australia have a policy when you have to vote. If it were compulsory, then you'll have had a say. Spoil your vote if you want. But yeah, I agree, Mark. I do think... But they won't make voting compulsory because how it is at the moment suits them. They will never make voting compulsory because they know they won't be voted for. Why do you think they don't do it? Because they win. The system is built for them to win. And I just, this narrative where people say you're not splitting the vote is just nonsense, because our entire political system has been built around that for 100 years. Splitting the vote has not been something that was just dreamed up when Restore Britain came along. It's been a narrative for decades. Before I was born, it's been a narrative, splitting the vote between parties. Tactical voting was spawned out of it. The reason tactical voting exists is because splitting the vote is very much a thing. I mean, just how our voting system works explains that. 11 people, 10 people, 8 people vying for one seat. Your votes are split across those parties for that seat. There's no twisting that. I wrote comments in the heat of the moment and ended up deleting it because of the fear. Yeah, Ben. Yes. But that's where people have to be more savvy. It's very easy to post a comment out of anger and rage, and I do concur with Farage on what he said. Cold rage. That's what people need. People need to be wiser. Not 9, Mark. 9.6 million people voted for Labour in the general election. 4.1 for Reform. 3.9 for the Liberal Democrats. And I think it was about 7.1, 6.9 maybe for the Conservatives. So a lot, but it's still only 50% turnout, mate. 50% of eligible voters turned out. I just take notes down, mate. I actually do write notes of what people say for things I can talk about. The fear tactics will eventually lead to the emergence of paramilitary units. It's inevitable when nothing else works. Yeah. That's what I fear, Bill. That's what I fear. I fear that people will faction off, and I fear someone will do something stupid, and I think they will then deploy the full force of what they've got. And I don't think we're even thinking about things like the security services, MI5, MI6, the hidden stuff that we don't see about, the military, the police, armed police. I think if that would then send the country into chaos, which is what I want to avoid at all costs. How do we wake up the rest, Mark? I don't know, mate. I've been trying for 4 years. I've been trying for 4 years, but I've got people close to me, mate, that won't see it. They won't see it. It doesn't matter how many people, how many beheadings are attempted on the streets of our country. It doesn't matter if we get categoric evidence of two-tier systems. We've even had the police confirm in writing via their 2025 mandate that they were prioritising minorities over native Brits, and still people will not see it because they choose not to. And I don't know if it's, again, fear on their part. I don't know what it is. They just don't believe it. They can't bring themselves to believe that the country could be devolving. That's the word I'm using from now on, by the way. Devolving. This country is devolving at a rapid rate, a very rapid rate. We are no longer the power we once were. We are no longer looked at on the global stage like we once were. Society is devolving, industry is devolving, our education system is devolving into some radicalized, just yes, Genzu, it's yes, social engineering. Yeah. My video about my 5-year-old, yeah, he went a little while ago, mate, an hour ago, and we did exactly what I said. He was in the car on the way back. We were talking about Minecraft. We sat and we did everything I said. And I honestly hope that after 4 or 5 years, and I'll carry on, I'll keep doing what I do, and other people and many others will as well. We'll keep exposing it. We'll keep talking about it. I worry about when he turns 18. I worry about the country he's going to be in when I'm in my 60s and when he's 18 years old. I worry about the education system that he's going through. Luckily, at the minute, he's at a good school. Thank God that they've got a good blend and they've got some good teachers. I would never. I mean, I've heard horror stories about some of the schools in big cities that have these radicals teaching in them. Yeah, I agree. Yes, Mark. And do you know what? It's something I've been saying today. When is the straw that breaks? But this is the thing, mate, is that we're talking about the solution. What's the solution? Because if people turn to violence, if people turn to violent protest, they will bring the state down on everybody like a ton of bricks. I mean, digital ID will become something that you would wish you had. That's how bad it will be. They've already done they got what they needed out of 2020, out of 19, if you know what I'm talking about. They got what they wanted out of that. Yeah, Mike. Yeah. I pay a lot of attention to education, and particularly the schools he goes to. Like I said, the one he's at the minute until he's about 11 is a very good school. He's lucky, I think, in the school he's got. Past that, when he goes up to the next one, the one that's local to me that I think he could end up going to, I won't have him in that. No way. But yeah, if it came to that, yeah, it would just give them authority. They would declare a national emergency. They would give themselves, they've already got power anyway, but they would give themselves unequal power, a power that no one would be able to stop. They would be able to instantly put things through like that. They would have everything on board, the courts, the police force. We already seen the police force. We know who they're aligned with. Not all of them. I don't want to condemn every police officer, as always. Same with every teacher, every MP. They're not all in on this. It's not this. There are people out there. I know good people in the police force. I know good teachers. I know good lecturers at colleges. There are good people out there, terrified to speak their mind, terrified to say what needs to be said because they know their job will be threatened. Kicking back at this agenda, turning up for work every day because they've got a mortgage to pay, and people will say, "Well, they're complicit." But people have to. If you're scared of posting a comment and then are going to condemn a police officer for not kicking back against the system, you're a hypocrite, as far as I'm concerned. Which is why I always have a bit of compassion for these people. I try not to condemn, and I think people will notice, or I hope have noticed, is I pick and choose who I am. Condemning the government, and 90% of the time it is when it's me condemning government, it's the top tier, because they're the ones making the rules. They're the ones who are whipping these MPs to do what they want them to do. They're the ones who are threatening them with their position in a party. And while I do wholly agree, I think that an MP who advocates for Labour now and stands by what they're doing, then they are essentially complicit in that agenda, in that narrative, because they don't lose their jobs by standing down. They maintain their MP's position and they can go independent. So it's getting to a point where I'm starting to say to myself, look, if you're going to stand in there and be whipped into voting for this, then you're part of the problem. And I think they have an option. The option is they disagree. And if we had 90 of them that actually had a backbone and said, you know what, this ain't right, especially what we've seen around this week, something's not right. And we saw them. We saw 100 MPs calling Starmer out. So they are there. They are there. There are people there calling for change, calling for something different. But the thing is I don't think they're doing enough. I think they should have stood down from the party, resigned from the party, just maintained their job as independents. They don't lose their seat, because the only way they can lose their seat is through serious illness, death, or being criminally convicted. They can effectively do what they want. Any Labour MP tomorrow could just turn around and say, I'm defecting to the Green Party, the Liberal Democrats. They could do that. They keep their seat. There's no by-election because of it. They keep their salary. They keep all their perks. So they have no excuse as far as I'm concerned. No excuse. And while they prop that up, then I believe that every person inside that party sitting there saying, and I've heard it before where some of these MPs have turned around and said things like, well, I want to stay inside the party and try and force the change. Well, 100 of you have condemned Starmer and come out against him, and still nothing's done. So just leave the party, because if they leave the party, they then lose their majority. They lose their majority. And once their majority goes, then you can call a vote of no confidence. That once they lose their majority, you can call a vote of no confidence. Still, you need 327 people in Parliament to all be on the alignment of they want that government out. And like I've said before, I personally believe MPs like the Liberal Democrats would not vote for that, because why would they want to give up 3 years of their term or their seats or have their seats threatened when no one's pointing the finger at them? They should be, because they're equally as bad. What do they stand for? I've talked about this before. Just like the police and justice system in this country, education is in a mess. It's like the teachers have been cherry-picked, for their political views. Yes, they have. And I've seen when I was in education, people pushed out of positions because they didn't want them there. And what they do, a lot of the time what they do, and anyone who knows big organizations, especially if you're getting like a local government pension, I was part of that. I gave up. This is what people don't understand. When I quit my job to go self-employed, I gave up my pension, I gave up my security, I gave up the fact that I could rock up 9 to 5 every day and just take a salary. I gave all that up to do this. I've got fuck all when I retire. I could have easily stayed in that education system and got myself a lovely little pension. I doubt I'll ever be, I doubt until the government changes and this agenda turns around, by which time I'll probably be retiring anyway. I can't see that changing anytime soon, and unless we get a change of government. But there are so many caveats to it. And I think, people talking about the paramilitary stuff and violence and stuff like that, I just don't think it will solve anything. I think it will just make things worse. A lot worse. Way worse. Yeah, exactly, Bill. Yeah. But then again, that's where because I think if you're sitting in Parliament and you're seeing the national condemnation of this government, and you're seeing the agenda and the narrative being exposed, how can you sit in that Parliament and stand by it? And if you do stand by it, then you're part of the problem, as far as I'm concerned. You think I've won the lotto, Mad? No. I have parents who did okay for themselves. I've worked since I was 14 years old. I'm 49 in 2 weeks' time. I don't have a bottomless pit of money. I put my videos out every day because I have to work. I have to do what I do. I'd fucking love it. Mate, if I'd won the lottery, I would probably be off on a racetrack somewhere, if I'm being brutally honest. The the day I stop posting is the day you'll know I've won the lot. Is the day it'll either be the day they shut me down or the day you'll know I've won a substantial amount of money on the lottery, and I will be on a racetrack somewhere in a car. But I don't think I'd say that now. I actually don't think I would, because like I said earlier, I do think I do have a little bit of responsibility to keep doing what I do. Um, I actually didn't think I would be doing this for as long as I have been. I thought I'd just do it. It would be a part-time thing that I do 2 or 3, videos a day on after working my 9 to 5, and it turned into what it did. And for a good reason, I think, because it's just relentless. It's utterly relentless. Yeah, exactly, Paul. Of course, Paul. Mate, I worked in the building trade, self-employed for 10 years. Yeah. But it's kind of going back to the narrative of people saying they're scared of losing their jobs. Lots of people's jobs are under threat. Lots of people are losing jobs on a day-to-day basis. Not through posting comments, they're losing their jobs because of the way this government is acting. They're losing jobs because businesses are being taxed out of existence. They're losing their jobs because they're bumping up national minimum wages that people can't afford. And yet the jobs aren't going to native Brits. We've seen the statistics around this. That's the thing. Like, I think, yeah. And I get why people have got, I get that people have got jobs and families to protect and stuff. But then, how is mass violence going to solve anything? If people are terrified of losing their jobs, what do you think the country descends into if the country, it's not civil war, because we technically can't start a civil war in the country, because there's, unless it was England against Scotland or Scotland against Wales, it's not going to happen. But violent civil unrest, aggressive civil unrest, it's not going to win. It's not going to win for anyone. It's not going to make anything better. It will just advance their agenda. It will just make it worse. And I've said for a while, for the longest period of time, I didn't want to believe it. But the more and more I see it, particularly this Labour government, with their U-turns, the bills they're putting through, the acts they're putting in, their agenda, their narrative, the way they talk, I think they want the public to react so they can do that. They can come down on they can come down on society like a ton of bricks and say, right, you've just proved our point. Society's unruly. We are now declaring a national emergency. We're fast tracking this. We're knocking this on the head right now. I think they want that. And I think once it happens, and if people allow it to happen, which is why I said, I actually wholly agree with what Farage said in the cold rage, is a very good comment. Not blind rage, not red hot rage, not anger, not violence, cold rage. We have to figure out a way to quietly, like I was saying earlier in the chat, comments and hashtags, en masse, unified. What scares me is even your page that was always calls it out has got notably darker of late, and justifiably so. Yes, yeah, it has, Michael, especially over the last week. It has got darker over the last week. And I don't like doing it. I hate doing it. And I know, which is why I kind of steered clear of the Northern, although I did post on it at 11 o'clock this morning. As I said in the video, what I was trying to do, I could have posted at 2 in the morning. I saw that go live at 2 o'clock in the morning. I could have been on that instantly and posted that straight away. But I genuinely wanted to sit back and see, after Henry, how the mainstream media handled it and the response from government before I said anything about it. And then I made the comments on that. And you could, and what I was able to do then was instead show which tabloids were putting it front and center, which ones weren't, which mainstream media outlets were putting it front and center, and which ones weren't. And I thought that was more important, because the uproar is going to happen. Other people are going to push it. It was always going to explode and go viral. It was always going to be seen. The videos everywhere. My thing on it was what their reaction was, because it gets lost otherwise. That's what I wanted to see, particularly after Henry, particularly after it kind of transpired that Hampshire police had tried to manipulate this court case and tried to push a narrative on the family as well. What do we as a country, or how do we get this government to take the people's concerns seriously and not just gloss over? Foremost seem to have the plans to do it, but the media shut them down. Yeah. Yeah. But that's the thing, Gig, is what I'm saying is I don't think protesting is having the effect it does, because unfortunately they've curbed that as well. Do you know now that to organise, like I talk to Rich obviously a lot from Outcast, by the way, my other page that we're also live on today. So me, Rich, and Swano do Outcast Media, and we talk quite a lot about these things. So Rich is obviously he was heavily involved for a year in the Great British National Strike, Great British National Protest. The parameters they put on protests now is insane. Specific times for a certain time limit, because if you don't do it, they'll arrest you. They'll arrest the organisers, and you'll get convicted of breaking the law if you go over your time limit, if you're not in your specified location. So they've put restriction on protest. So and I remember when they did this, it was 4 years ago or 3 years ago? I remember when it was the Conservatives that put it through, where they basically said, like, you used to be able to protest outside Westminster. They stopped all that. If you go and try and protest outside Westminster without a mandate to do it, or without consent to do it, they'll soon have you gone. They'll soon have you out of there. So basically, they restricted protest and made it less ineffective. And as much as we all hate Just Stop Oil and all that lot, they were kind of the ones that were really the ones that were going against that narrative. When they shut down things like the M25 and various different places, it pisses people off, but they were prepared to get themselves arrested to get their message across. And unfortunately, we do live in a society now where people are terrified. They're terrified of being arrested. They're terrified of going to jail. People have had examples made of them, and they've broadcast that relentlessly because they want people to see it. If you stand up, if you step out of line, if you say the wrong thing, if you put something in black and white that we can retrieve on social media, we will have you. And they're terrorizing and terrifying people via their narrative into not speaking up. And the day it kicks off badly is the day then anyone going out on the street will look how they've turned the flags against people. Look how they turned the St. George's against people, the Union Jack against people. Look how they weaponize the left to call people fascists and far right. It's all part of the agenda. It's all part of their narrative. And I think people have just got to get back to petitions, peaceful protest. I'm not saying people shouldn't protest, because they should, but you got to do it in the right way. And unfortunately, sometimes, but I think the social media thing, I think the comment hashtag thing is the way to go. I honestly believe that's the way to go. I think it's the only thing we've got that we can really use to make a statement is social media. And it's not through pushing one individual. It's not through pushing one narrative or one side. It's through a unified comment and hashtag that everybody gets on board with. Anybody who's awake, anybody who's against the system, everybody relentlessly posting the same thing. Doesn't have to be someone who gets the credit for it. It doesn't have to be started by anyone. It doesn't have to be fucking interviews done on it. It's just a national message. One national message. The Great British, yeah, to be fair, Christine, yeah. Unions do hold a lot of power. They do hold a lot of power. They restricted. Was it over poll tax? Was it, mate? I think that's when the first restrictions kind of came in, but they definitely bolstered them up a few years ago. The Conservatives did, particularly around Westminster and Parliament. Like, you cannot protest on Whitehall. If you got a couple of hundred people just turn up on Whitehall and protest, you'd be moved along very quickly. Then you'd see the police start acting like the German police. They'd have you out of there forcefully very quickly if you haven't got permission to do it. And that's the point, isn't it? They don't want disruption. And I think one of the points of it was MPs were being prevented from getting to Parliament, which is why they put a restriction on it. The point of preventing MPs getting to Parliament was sending a fucking message, and they restricted it. But that's the thing, Madda. If you're doing it relentlessly on Labour's platform and newspaper platforms, it will get seen by more people. If I was to turn around tomorrow, if we turn around and decided today, the 144 of us or 50 of us that are in here, and said, right, this is the comment, this is the hashtag. Let's just go out. Every time you go to post something, you just write that comment and write that hashtag. I then use my platform to say, this is what we're doing. You then get a few thousand more people on board and they start doing it for a day. Before you know it, it picks up and picks up and picks up. And it gets to a point where then people start talking about, why are people doing this? And when they get the answer, they then start doing it. And it needs to snowball and gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And before you know it, what starts with 100 people ends up being 1 million people. And hopefully what continues with 1 million people ends up being 10 million people. You get 10 million people spamming the same comment and the same hashtag relentlessly on social media, believe me, they'll wake up. They will wake up. When it's everywhere, they'll wake up. And I don't mean like attacking content creators' accounts, just the main ones, the big ones, the ones that matter. Mainstream media and the government. Yeah, exactly, Leanne. Yeah, it is. Mike, you're commenting on YouTube or Facebook. I don't know. I'm broadcasting on 3 different channels at the minute, so I don't know which one you're on. But yeah, like it's, yeah. Yeah, exactly, Jen. But it's got to be. But the thing is, it has to. The funny thing is, right, is what I also find about society and people is it's like some people won't get on board with something unless someone they idolize does it. And this isn't about idolizing people. This isn't about putting people on pedestals. This has to be about a unified voice that the general public adopt to condemn the way this country's being run. And it should never be attached to a movement or a person. It should just be the body is the general public. The people are the people. That's what it needs to be. Yes, I suppose attaching an image to it, something that you can relentlessly post. Yeah. You're watching from France, Simon. The French have a good tactic to get the government to listen. Oh, I tell you what, I always credit the French for their protest. They don't give a shit. They don't give a shit. They don't. They'll shut down Paris like that. And the thing is there's a lot of people there that don't care if they get arrested. That's the difference. They don't care. They don't. I've been there. I was there for the fuel protests in like 2016, something like that. 2017, 2018, maybe. Can't remember exactly when I went, but I was there when they were all walking around in their yellow high vises and they shut the place down. Shut it down. They don't give a shit. Yeah, this is the other thing, John. Like this is, yeah, the education system has radicalized a lot of people, indoctrinated a lot of people. And the worst part about it is you've got a lot of 35 and below teachers who are all educated through this DEI narrative, this equality, diversity narrative, and they're now the ones teaching. So you've got radicalized people through the education system now passing on that same radicalization because they believe it. And I don't blame them for it. I've said this before. I don't actually blame them for it because it's all they know. It's what they've been taught. It's what they've been told to believe. It's what they've been how they've been told to think. Because they're not from our generation where we didn't have that. I mean, I talk about this all the time. I remember being at middle school and doing craft design technology. I remember making like wooden bows and arrows. I remember doing like sport 4 or 5 times a week. I remember, you know, maths was maths, science was science, English was English. We had religion, and that was generally around Christianity. But I also remember that being removed around about 91, 92 when I was in upper school. Prior to me doing my GCSEs. But I don't remember the education system ever being other than when I was being brought up. And I've worked in education for 8 years, like before I started doing this. I saw the push for British values. I saw Agenda 2030, SDG 1 through 17, now, published all around the college. I saw the net zero agenda. And I've always been one that's maintained that you can be fundamentally pro-environmentalism and absolutely against net zero, because the two don't combine. They simply don't. But there are far too many people who think net zero and environmentalism go hand in hand, and they absolutely do not. It is net zero is the replacement of fossil fuels for an electrification system that people will profiteer from. And I don't see how they can't fucking see it. They think it's better for the planet, but it's not. Oh, I think they have a moral compass, Sarah. I just think it just points in one direction, and it's the wrong direction, and they won't move on it. I think they have a very stuck moral compass is their problem. Because I've always been one where I've said this before a million one times before. I can sit here and be pissed off with littering in my area and pollution of the rivers and watching trees getting chopped down and be environmentalist, and then turn around in the same sentence and say, I don't fucking agree with these windmills being put up, destroying the countryside, because I believe in environmentalism. So I'm wholly against the destruction of countryside, and that includes net zero. Don't even get me started on lithium mines and battery production and the people that are in the slavery that is used to mine these minerals in foreign countries. And these twats push this up like they're these holier than thou, and they just don't want to see it. I sat and watched even a BBC. You might condemn me for this. The BBC, with their investigative journalism, do have some good people there. Again, I don't wholly condemn every single person that's part of the BBC, because I know it's not everybody. It's the people at the top, as usual, and the higher management. They're the people at fault. It's not every single person that works for them. They've got some very good investigative journalists. They've been doing loads of stuff lately on vape shops, on high street crime. They've done some really good stuff on it. And I remember they did one on lithium mining. They did one on lithium mining and had some reporters go out to South Africa and various different places, looking at the areas that are just being decimated by lithium mining, and the families and livestock and stuff that are dying and being put out of their homes because of it. And they all turn a blind eye to this. They don't care. Which is why I think they're hypocrites, and why I call them hypocrites, because they don't look into it, this stuff. Even their own favored platforms will tell them how bad it is, but they don't want to see that. The only CO2 they want gone is us. Yeah, Mike. Well, we practically are net zero, aren't we? And it won't make any difference. It won't make any difference at all. If we did hit net zero tomorrow, nothing will change. All it'll mean is we're all way worse off when it comes to electric. We've got a very, what's the word? Fragile system, a fragile energy system that could come down at any point. Yeah. They can, yeah. I did a video on David Bellamy a while ago about that, about his narrative. People they tried to spin it that he'd gone out of his mind. But the comments he made about net zero, about climate change, happened in like 2003, and he wasn't diagnosed with any of his dementia for like 10 years later. There was nothing coherently wrong with him. I think he just saw it for what it was, like most of us do. How anyone can sit there and say you're replacing the fossil fuel industry with an electrification system and people aren't going to profiteer in exactly the same way is nuts to me. How you can decimate our steel industry, decimate nuclear, or not invest in nuclear when lots of other countries are doing it, and leave our nation susceptible to a very fragile system, which has been proven, what was it, last year or the year before, when they had the major blackouts in Portugal and Spain because their grid went down, because they are something like 75% renewable reliant. And the grid went down for like 3 days, didn't it? Or 2 days. People were living in the dark. Bruce, just thank you. I know this must upset you, but thank you, mate. It doesn't upset me because obviously talking to you guys and when I can talk to people is great. It doesn't upset me. I do have cold rage. I do get angry. And I know sometimes I can come across on my posts sometimes where it looks like I'm accusing followers and stuff of things, but I'm not. It's coming out of frustration, pure frustration. Because I think what people sit generally, individually, each of you, over the course of a day, you might see 2 of the 5 videos I do. Out of the 5 videos I've done, there are 20 I could have done. That's the difference. So I publish 5, you maybe see 1 or 2, but I've looked at 20 that I could have done something on. And if I don't do, and every day it changes. So the 5 I then could have done on the Monday, I'll do 2 of those on the Tuesday because another 3 things or 5 things will have turned up. And I can get to the end of the week, so I just don't have enough time. I don't have enough time to make it. I could make 20 videos a day. I genuinely could. I just don't have the time. I could probably sit on a live from 9 o'clock in the morning till 10 o'clock at night. Just pulling stuff. Unfortunately, I'm not Talk TV and I'm not GB News and I'm just one person in a room. And it doesn't upset me. I get angry. I do get angry. And that spills out sometimes. I hope people understand that. It spills out sometimes. But yeah, it's mortally frustrating. Because I think every year, so like when I started in 2022, you've got to think that a bunch of 14-year-olds who I wasn't talking to then have now turned 18, and some of those are now waking up to it and others aren't. So you then get a whole new batch of people. So I feel like all I do is repeat myself over and over and over again because it doesn't change. It didn't change for me under the Conservatives were just as bad. I spent 2 years condemning them. Then Labour come in. I knew they'd be what they were. And I've got the video. I've said this before. I've got the videos to prove it. And then Labour come in and I knew they'd do what they're doing. I spoke about it. Many others did as well because we'd read the policy. We knew who they were being lobbied by. I exposed 27 of their MPs for the lobbying they had going on. And it's not a scandal. They're allowed to do it. Most of them were being lobbied by all sorts of quangos, NGOs, renewable energy companies, like you name it. And when you get people like Dale Vince turning around doing interviews saying, talking about Farage's 5 million, I couldn't give a shit. What's Farage? But if you did say that, I don't agree because I think it's a lot of money. I have said this. I do think it's a lot of money. It's an obscene amount of money for one person to get. I don't think it's a good look. I've said this before. I'll say it again. I could do this for every single person in that parliament. Every single person in that parliament, by the way. I don't think it's a good look. But the reality is if Chris Harborne is giving Farage money to influence something that benefits him, what's that going to be? Cryptocurrency? Something monetary? All right. What about science, tech, education, industry, the defense system, asylum? He's not influencing all of it. Whereas you've got a parliament full of people there who've been lobbied and lobbying and lobbied by institutions for 10, 15 years, now elected into government. They've all took donations from places. They're all backed by people. And then you get people like Dale Vince coming out condemning Farage when I know for a fact, because it's documented throughout Parliament records, he's donated near 5 million quid to the Labour Party. And I would imagine he's benefiting quite substantially from their renewable energy policies. So for him to sit there and say that Farage is being influenced by that 5 million as someone who's donated 5 million quid to the Labour Party and given personal donations to Labour candidates prior to the 2024 election, the fucking hypocrisy of it is staggering because they're all doing it. It's how the bloody country works. It's how it works. Yeah, exactly, Christine, and I do as well. I just still think it's a lot of money. I understand why he's got it, and I'm not against him for it, and I'm not against him getting it. It's just a lot of money, isn't it? That's the problem. People don't just get given 5 million quid. Even I can sit here and say, yeah, wouldn't it be great if someone just handed you I'd love someone to give me 50 grand. Oh, 5 million quid. If someone gave me 50 grand, I'd be quite happy for the next couple of years. I'd be all right. 5 million quid though, it's a lot of money. But it's not here. It's not just him. They're all at it. Every single one of them. I could tell you things about all of them. And I've brought the videos out. I've done it. I've been there, done it. I don't need to keep saying it. I've done it 101 times before. The thing for me then is yeah, Harborne's probably going to get some contracts out of it, just like Dale Vince is getting contracts out of his. And for the people on the left to sit there and say, call Farage out for getting contracts out of it is fucking bollocks. Dale Vince has Dale Vince got an like not exclusive, but his Ecotricity was given a contract by City Hall under Khan after he donates a load of money to their party. Fucking person like him saying that is insane. You'd be happy with 50 quid. Yeah, I think most people would be happy with 50 quid or 500 quid, wouldn't they? But I do also understand Farage's point because I know, because I've followed him for a long time, since like 2011, I do know that he applied for better security and Parliament denied him it. He was denied it by Parliament in the run-up to the 2024 election because he wasn't an MP. So they didn't give him any parliamentary privilege with regard to that. So he did have to fund it for himself. So I believe that. And I've seen his system. I've seen his team when he's going around talking to people and they've got that whole thing on the road. I've seen what they're doing. It's got to be paid for by someone, you know, and that's any political party. Anytime they hire a conference hall, anytime they're doing stuff, it's all been paid for by someone. Someone's contributed something for something. It's how the world works. How many of you are going to get up and do something for absolutely nothing? Would you turn up for work tomorrow and say, do you know what, boss? I like you. You can have today's pay. Oh, fuck. And the Greens find this so easy because none of them bloody work. They're all claiming benefits, aren't they? So they're used to people giving them something for nothing, which is why they condemn him for it. They don't understand the real world. Funny how that spins around, isn't it? Anyway, guys, 5 more minutes and then I'm going to have to go. I have got stuff to do. I have been at it again all day today, but I wanted to come on and do a little live, especially on YouTube and Facebook, just to say hi. Hi, Reese. And yeah, just I think get a little bit off my chest, and hopefully you've all had the opportunity to talk amongst yourselves as well and listen to me drone on. But just for us all to get a little bit off our chest. But it's nice to hear you guys. I like getting the feedback off of you. I am going to go off now and look into some stuff. I'm going to talk to Rich. I'm going to speak to some people, and I'm going to see if we can get something up and running that's not like a campaign, but is something that we can all get on behind and that everyone can do safely from the comfort of their own home, not put themselves in harm's way or have any threat to their job. So it's got to be carefully thought about. And I'll see what we can come up with. And you will see hopefully something come out in the next couple of days. I'm hoping if we can get enough people to back it. And I don't want it. I don't give a shit. I don't want any credit for it. I just think we need to give people something that everybody can just unify by, because it doesn't seem to be working with political parties. It doesn't seem to be working with the movements that are out there, be it supporting the farmers, the WASPy women, the pink ladies, UTK, all these loads. I think so many things are out there now. We just need one message, one simple message that everybody can get on board with. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. We'll see what we can do. Because I know people have got that rage and that anger. We just can't let it spill out onto the streets because they'll use it against us. They will absolutely use it against us. I know they will. I know. And we'll give them everything they want. They'll never say it. They'll never admit it. But I just think if you're really looking at the media spin, the stuff they're letting out, the anger they're letting people express, yeah, we'll see. Well, yeah, because, yeah, John, a lot of people that follow Corky follow me. Oh, thank you very much, Gigabyte. Thank you. You might not always agree with everything I say. I will say that now. A lot of these will attest to that. I don't always come out with the words people want to hear. But just know that I think for you all, I think most people understand that I have got the best interests of most people in this country at heart. Um, I see it for what it is. I see all of them for what they are. All of them, not individuals that people want to individualize, every single one of them. But unfortunately, it's no good me calling that out. It doesn't make any difference because we're only ever going to get a change. We're only ever going to change law, legislation, and how the country works via a political party. That's simple fact, because it's how the country runs. We can if we protest, there's always going to be people turn up and want to cause trouble. If we write petitions, there's going to be people that say they're not worth it. People are always going to faction off to who they trust more and who they don't. And I think we just need a unified message that doesn't have anyone at the top of it. It doesn't have anyone controlling it. We just need a unified message that everyone can just own for themselves. That's it. We need to make it public ownership of that message. Oh God, don't fair weather. I wish I didn't care. I wish I didn't care. And I wish more people did. But one thing I'll give, you said that there, Mark, one thing I will give the left is they will tactical vote and they will align with each other if they want to stop something. I've said this multiple times before. With regard to a petition, a protest, they'll all infight and argue all the time. But when it comes to something big, they will back whatever they see as the best thing to defeat the thing they don't like. Whether it be Liberal Democrats, Greens all getting behind Labour, Liberal Democrats getting behind the Greens, they will unify all of their differences to stop what they fundamentally go against. And we haven't learned that and I'll tell you why we haven't learned it yet, because we haven't needed to. Because the right side of politics has been dominated by the Conservatives for over 300 years. And there's never been any real, apart from UKIP back in 2011, there's never been any real opposition to the Conservative Party. So the right side of politics has always pretty much sat on its own. And now we do have a problem. And we have a very divided right. And unfortunately, we need to think of the betterment of the nation. And you might not always get what you want, but it's certainly going to be better than what we've got coming. Do you know what I mean? You can pick your favourites all day long. They're all as bad as each other. Rich men with egos. And there's no exception to it. I don't care what you think. It'd be great if we could just have a public party, but that will never work because they won't allow it to happen. And you need money to push your party, to do leafleting, to get people on board, to employ people, to have offices. So it's always going to be controlled by money. Money talks, unfortunately. We live in that world. And as much as I am capitalistic, I will admit that, I believe in regulated capitalism. I believe that donations should be capped. I believe that, there's so many things I think should happen. But you're never, ever going to get the perfect political party. It just ain't going to happen. It ain't going to happen. What's that? They will rent a house to vote in areas, say they live there for a day, then move to their voting area. Mm-hmm. Yeah, Lee. Yeah, it is. No more Labour Party. Yeah, we had like Labour out, no more Labour Party. That's the thing, is I think there's a lot of existing hashtags and narratives. I think we need just like we need 3 different versions, one sentence or 2 sentences, 10 words tops, and a fresh tag that speaks for everybody. Like I said earlier, even if your whole problem is immigration or the cost of living or combinations, it needs to be something that speaks for everybody, that everybody has no fear of pushing, that people can comment the words without fear of losing their job or going to court. And it needs to be done by millions, relentlessly. I seem deflated, Mal, a little bit. It won't stop me, trust me, it won't stop me. But of course, I'm like everybody else. I'm going to have days where I sit in, and especially talking about this tonight, it's like, what the fuck do we do? What do we do? What do we do? How do we get them to listen? And I think the worst thing for me, I think the realization is they don't want to listen and they're not going to. That's the where I'm at. They're doing exactly what they want to be doing. And I don't think they'll stop until they've done what they want to do. Shove a pump up my ass. I'll be fine. Honestly, it's a little bit about my son more than anything. It's my son. When I have my little boy, he goes on. He's gone back to his mum's now. But when I have him for that period of time, and he's just oblivious to the world, he's it's so like I'm an older dad. I've said this before. He's so oblivious to all our problems. He's just got that kid. God, I wish I could be a child again. He's just got that innocence. Do you know what I mean? Like everything's amazing to him, and and it terrifies me what world he's gonna grow up into. I'm terrified of. I live in a good area, to be perfectly honest. I don't worry about his safety on the streets, but I worry how long it's going to be before I do have to start worrying about his safety on the streets. How long is it going to be before I have to start worrying that he's getting older and he's going to go out with his mates? When's the day going to come that we get a HMO dumped in our area and some man is staring at him in a park? When's the day that he goes walking down the street and someone, because of this knife crime epidemic, stabs him for no real particular reason? That's what I'm terrified. That's what I'm terrified of. And I probably will be one of those parents that will keep him in the house. I will teach him computers and gaming just so we'll sit here all day. And I'll be like, yeah, you don't need to go outside, mate. Don't worry about that shit. Just stay in here with your dad. That's what I'm starting to think like. And I know I'm not the only person. I know there are millions of parents across the country who feel exactly the same way. And I also understand and know that there are millions of parents in this country who actually experience that fear every single day because it has happened to their area and they do have that fear and they are worried about their kids walking home from school. I think a lot of them now in a lot of areas are actually worried about their kids going to fucking school, especially what we saw in Manchester today. I mean, it's insane, isn't it? Parents are now terrified to send their kids to school because they don't know if their kid's going to get stabbed by another 14-year-old. They're terrified that their kids walking home could get grabbed by some foreigner who has no cultural resemblance to anything we believe in. That's the issue for me. That my child might grow up and not get a job because of who he is. That he might not have a job because they just the country's been decimated industrially and economically. So many different things. It's not just for me, immigrate. Never has been just about immigration. What he's being taught when he goes to school. Do they employ a teacher or 3 teachers next year that try? And I hear about it. I hear about kids being forced into religious beliefs or taught religious beliefs that their parents don't want. And it's fucking mortifying. Yeah, UTFR. I want to Nave. Sorry, I should just say he's going to be going to martial arts. Something. I'll get him into something. Horrible, isn't it? And that's, I think, what deflates me a little bit. It's not what I do. It's not, I mean, I've done this long enough now with negativity in everything I fucking say every minute of the day that I've developed a shell to that. But it's sitting there looking at him. And I wish he could grow up in the world I grew up in, which obviously there was still stuff. You know, there were people who would abduct kids and stuff happened. But I remember running around as a kid with my mates and yeah, if funny old men came near us, we'd fucking give them what for. But I think you're more likely today, if a pervy old man came up to a bunch of kids today and they did something about it, they're more likely to get the kids arrested. That's the problem I have. Is my son going to be safe to speak his mind? Is my son going to be safe to walk down the street? Is he going to be safe in his own fucking school? Is he going to be safe going out with his mates? Is he going to have any hope of buying a home? Is he going to have any hope of owning a car, of having any freedom? Is he going to have any hope of going on holiday? Is he going to have any hope of building a family? Am I ever going to be a grandparent? Will he be able to afford to have children? Horrible, isn't it? It's fucking horrible. Yeah, Sarah. Sarah. Yeah, I've seen. Yeah, so there's local community groups that I don't get involved with them too much. This is not an egotistical thing, but because I have a big following, as soon as I say anything inside my local community groups, they're like, fucking hell, brute, and they all comment. So I just watch. I sit from the side and watch. And I've started seeing local community groups in my area posting about migrants hanging around parks. There was a big video done at my local supermarket the other day about a migrant that was driving around the car park looking at kids. And he was going round and round the car park. And I've always said that my area in Suffolk would be one of the last touched. I always knew it would be. It's just something about Suffolk and East Anglia. I always knew that they would go for the cities first and the centre of England first, and they would gradually push it out. And obviously we saw places like Luton and Leicester and Birmingham years ago. But I always knew the spill would come. The spill would eventually come and it would eventually hit here. And I think half the problem I've had in my local area is what I do is a lot of people always question what I did because they didn't see it here. And they'd be like, what the fuck is he talking about? Because I was aware of what was going on in other places because of the connections in the online community, and I see the narrative that they're not paying attention to. And now it's coming here. And now they're waking up. And now they're starting to see it. And now they're starting to make comments. And now they're starting to show photos. Why is this man here? Why is this man standing outside the kids' park? Who's this? Who are these three guys that are walking down the street? It's starting to happen. And it will get worse and worse and worse. And it will spill out in further and further and further. I've said it 101 times before. I'll repeat it again before I go. People will not pay attention until it actually happens on their own doorstep. Because, like I said earlier, everybody has their own little boxes. Everybody has their little boxes. Some people will listen to people talking about the education system and be like me. If I had no awareness, of anything that was going on in this country, I would look at my son's school and be like, I don't know what all these people are talking about. Like my school, his school's fine. Like he's got really good teachers. They've got a really good curriculum. They've got a really good program. But unfortunately, I am awake and I do know. And I know that I am very, very fucking fortunate in where my son is educated compared to some of the shit I've seen in this country. Very fortunate for the school he goes to. Because it could be so, so much worse. Where the lassie had to defend herself. Yeah, I remember that, mate. Yeah. Whatever happened to her? Did she got off, didn't she? My pleasure, Ben. It's nothing because I love doing what I do. Jesse Ventura rattled everyone's cage. Nice one, Nave. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, Mark. Yes, prime example. I did a video on that. It was a mini, weren't it? She had like a mini, and she was a big old girl. She had a Mini Cooper, smashed her suspension, didn't she? Yeah, I remember. And then all of a sudden, she's fucking talking to the council about sorting the potholes out because her car got damaged. Unfortunately, there are 650 of them. So, and they live in places that these things aren't being pushed onto them. They live in protected communities. They live in gated communities, very wealthy, or in the countryside. They don't see it. They don't have to live with it. That's the problem. They live in wealthy areas that don't have pothole problems. They live in wealthy areas that have good schools. They live in wealthy areas that don't have HMOs and asylum seekers dumped on them. And there are a lot of people like that in this country. So many people. They're lucky to live in an area that has a good school system, that hasn't been radicalized yet. I think, personally, for me, I think a lot. I actually believe a lot of primary schools, because they're not necessarily dictated by curriculum so much, They do kind of get a bit of free will in what they can do. It's only when you start getting to like 11 plus in GCSE years or 10 plus GCSE years, that's when they start pushing the curriculum. And you certainly don't get it at college because I worked there. Obviously, there's like when I was training apprentices, there's a level you have to get them to, but there's not really a this is how you have to do it. You kind of given a bit of free will in it because obviously there has to be, you're going to get people that are working with wealthy builders. You're going to get people that are working with one man bands. You're going to get people that have good tools and bad tools. You're going to get very broad spectrum of people, and they can't all learn the same. So colleges do adopt that. I know I worked in it, and I won't see. I'll condemn I don't condemn the college I worked for because I do think they were very good, but I could see the agenda that Ofsted were pushing, the regulator. I could see the policy that they were having to create as product of that regulator. And I've spoke about this many times before. I think I had a video out tonight actually about Quangos. I did a video on my YouTube and my Facebook about Quangos. And I've got many more to come. Many more to come. Don't forget that I've got a whole playlist on my YouTube, big videos that I've done, tons of stuff on PFI that they want to bring into the housing system now. DEI, I broke down the whole DEI system. Net zero, I've done that. Agenda 2030, lithium mining, I've done all of it. I actually referenced that BBC documentary in the lithium mining video I did. I've covered all this shit. It's all there. I actually got moaned at by someone on my platform the other day that said your 20-minute videos are too long. I'm like, do you realise that people sit in like 2-hour lectures? Like you're moaning about a 20-minute video giving you fucking information. 20 minutes, half an hour at best, I think my longest video is. Anyway, it's not you guys. The funny thing is don't ever take this badly because I'm not having a go at you guys because you're the ones sitting here listening. It's the others. Thank you very much, Josh. Jamie, what was that about Jamie Oliver? Well, do you remember when Jamie Oliver exposed the schools for the school dinners? He got shot down. He got massively shot down. And the whole general public turned against him. And that was product of the media and the government because he tried to call the government out, didn't he, for the school dinner system. And he got absolutely obliterated for it. Turkey Twizzlers, weren't it? What he brought out? Turkey Twizzlers was his thing. And everybody was like, can't believe you're trying to get turkey Twizzlers. It's like, fucking hell. He's trying to make nutrition better for kids. And you're going on about turkey fucking Twizzlers. I remember that. I'll never forget that. The condemnation that man endured for trying to make school dinners better was ridiculous. We've been sat here for over an hour, wanting it to go on for another hour. It's actually an hour and 43 minutes I've been up. I did say I was going to go at 9. It's now 15:15, so you got an extra 15 minutes. Hi, Real. Hi, Zuma. I was just going to say Zuma. And yeah, thank you ever so much, guys, for listening. Whatever platform you're on, I don't know if you're on YouTube or Facebook. Thank you very much for listening. I do appreciate it. Yeah, I do get a bit deflated. I'm going to sign off now. I do get a bit deflated, but I'm okay. It's all right. I go through these phases. I think it's more when I start thinking about my son and his future when it really starts, when you see these things happen one after the other over a relentless, what I call a relentless period with Henry, with what happened in Ireland, with what's happened in Manchester, with then you see the court cases around the Manchester's attackers, how they've handled the protesters in Southampton. I think that whole week, it just builds, doesn't it? It builds on everyone. And the problem is because of what I do, I spend a lot of time. It circulates with me in what I do on a day-to-day basis. I don't get the luxury of walking off and going sitting in on a building site. I could go get all my tools, go and buy a van, get all my tools back out of the garage, and be like, fuck it, I'm just going back out on site. I'm going to go work with my best mate and just go and help him do roofs. I could do that. I could easily do that. The copper that got punched. Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm about. The Manchester attacker. Yeah. The 2 lads still not been convicted. Yet they had them people at that protest in Southampton on Monday in court, done and dealt with by Friday. Or will be. Well, when was it? What day is it today? Tuesday. When did it happen? When was last Monday? So yeah, last Monday, wasn't it, when it happened? Fucking hell. It feels like a month ago, doesn't it? It's last week. This is how much news goes round. It feels like a month ago. Last week. This is relentless, never ending. Yeah, I think so as well, Nath. And this is kind of what my message has been today, is about the silent majority. I think there are a lot more of us than people think. A lot more. A lot more. And I understand why they're scared to speak out. I do get it. I get it. People are terrified of having their livelihoods taken away, condemnation from local communities. I'm going to end on what we started this on. I fundamentally get why people are scared of speaking out, which is why we have to come up with something cross creator, cross platform, a singular message that just gets pushed hard by everybody. No political allegiance, no political alignment, no person sitting at the top. One message, singular. No credit, no merch attached to it, no buy my hat or buy the t-shirt, nothing. Just one message that anyone can get involved in, anyone can post. I'll come up with something. Fear is a brilliant tune. Fear, yeah. Yeah, I saw it, Richard. It's again fear mongering, scaring people. If you align with this party, if you vote that way, you're a fascist, you're a racist, your job's under threat. It's fucking bullshit. Bullshit. And yet I've yet to see anybody post a single credible bit of evidence to say reform as a political party are fascist and racist. You can't be fascist if you've never, I mean, fuck me. If you look at the narrative of the left and this Labour government, I've never seen anything more fascist in my life. I think our society has descended more towards fascism and state control under this Labour government than any other government ever. Your time is coming. I like that one, Nath. Might be a bit too aggressive, though. That's the thing. We've got to be careful about what we say. It's very, when you're pushing that as like a national message, that can come across. But trust me, mate, I love it. I love it. But I think they would just look at it as a direct threat. Your time is coming. Your time is coming for what? They'd spin it. Yeah, they'd spin that. We'll think of something. And I'll keep you posted on it. Anyway, guys, yeah, I'm going to call it a day. That's 1 hour and 48 minutes, 20 past 9. I'm going to go and get myself a drink. Thank you ever so much for your support. I do, honestly, if I say things that you don't agree with all the time, I do apologize. Sometimes videos that I make will come across in a way where you've just got to turn around and say to yourself, he's having a day today. Because it's not directed at you. It never is. It's never directed at my followers, ever. It comes across in the wrong way because what I'm directing it at is when I turn around, and you have to understand when I say things like, you lot need to wake the fuck up, I'm not actually talking to you. I'm trying to talk to the people that aren't awake, the people that I'm trying to wake up. It's not the people that understand or who are on my side. It's the people that are not. That's who I'm talking to. And ironically, a lot of my videos get pushed out to people that don't follow me. You'd be surprised. I actually am quite surprised at it, but they do. But obviously, a lot of my followers do see my stuff. So don't ever take a video where I'm saying you lot need to sort yourselves out. It's not you lot I'm talking about. It's the people that need to sort themselves out that I'm talking about. But anyway, guys, thank you so much. Much appreciated. I hope this went all right. I'm sure it's nice having all the comments in one section. So I think I'll do this in future from now on. Obviously, Outcast will get this as well. I don't know if anyone... Go and follow us on Outcast Media. Me, Rich and Swano doing regular videos each week, couple of videos a week, long form, about an hour-long podcast. Where we talk about all this stuff, just the three of us. And we're going to start doing call-ins on it as well soon, hopefully. We're going to start doing lives with live call-ins. So you'll be able to call us and speak. That's the next plan. So, yeah. Anyway, stay tuned, stay safe, stay vigilant, stay cold and angry. We will win in the end. We will win in the end. Anyway, take care, guys. Thank you very much. Much appreciated.